So last night I saw the movie Saltburn, directed by Emerald Fennell. And while this is probably the most shocking and twisted movie of the entire year, I actually think there's a lot of meaning behind the weirdness through the symbols and themes and details. And I want to break down the entire thing with all of my insights and my research, especially the ending. So to break this movie down, we're going to use two themes. One, insatiable desire. We'll discuss the main message of the movie, Oliver's obsession with Felix, Oliver's insecurity, and the symbolism of the Saltburn estate. And two, exploring the forbidden, where we'll discuss the bathwater drinking scene, the menstrual blood scene, Oliver framing Farley, Oliver's real parents, the gravestone scene, every death in Felix's family, and the ending, revealing Oliver's antics and the final dance, and much more. And if you like this video, please leave a thumbs up and a comment, it helps so much. And if you want to see more of these, please make sure to subscribe as well. Let's get started. Theme number one, insatiable desire. To get a grasp on a film as wild and untamed as this one, I think it's best to start with the main central theme of this film and establish the overall message of this movie. Emerald Fennell, the director of the film, in an interview with the DGA, says, "I wanted to write something about desire, the type of desire that grabs you by the throat and pins you to the wall. It's about not being able to touch the things you want to touch." So this film, at the end of the day, is about wanting what you can't have, that unsatisfiable yearning for what is not yours. And if you do somehow manage to acquire something that you wanted so badly initially, you suddenly have the need for more and more. And the most obvious case of this is Oliver's infatuation and obsession with Felix. When Oliver first catches sight of Felix, he admires him from afar, hypnotized by his appearance and presence and status with his friend group. And more importantly, relating to the central theme of the film, Felix represents everything Oliver has never had and always wanted. This is why Oliver becomes so enticed, infatuated, and obsessed with him. Felix has friends, clothes, riches, women, popularity, all things that we see are missing in Oliver's life. And the sad thing is, Oliver is a keen and studious young man with so much potential to explore in his future. He also has a new friend at Oxford who enjoys studying, chatting, and spending time with him. But as the film suggests, so many of our characters can't be satisfied with the most beautiful little things in life. Even the staff at the school have this shallow outlook on life, putting more value into social status rather than keenness to learn. In one of the opening scenes with the professor is much more warm and accommodating towards Farley rather than Oliver. Only because Farley has a familial relationship with an individual that professor admired from afar back in his college days. He completely dismisses the hard work and attention to detail that Oliver showcases in his written work that he recites in this scene, and shows admiration for someone who is late to the meeting and doesn't really care about him at all. And I think this element of the movie is being critical of the world we currently live in as well. How celebrities and content creators leading in fashion and entertainment earn more attention and admiration from us than, say, health professionals and scientists, making life-changing breakthroughs and saving lives. And this shallow value system of the world in this film is what makes Oliver fail to value himself and ignore his own wonderful skills and talents. And that same shallow atmosphere follows us to Felix's estate, Saltburn. Saltburn is the ultimate symbol for extravagance, excess, and all the while, emptiness. Having so much that means so little. The film is purposely shot in this tall vertical aspect ratio that stretches up and down the screen rather than across as we traditionally see. It highlights the elevated ceilings and the towering doors of the castle, but also captures this abundance of empty space. And when Oliver becomes comfortable at Saltburn, he does everything he can to stay right where he is. And we'll dive deeply into his sinister schemes and antics in theme number two, exploring the forbidden. Throughout this movie, especially as the story progresses, there's this recurring theme of curiously trespassing into forbidden territory, wanting to explore more into what is taboo, what should be private, and what is none of your business. Emerald Fennell, in that same interview, says that this curiosity is demonstrated by every character, all wanting to learn more in the most invasive ways, always peeking and eavesdropping and gossiping. And she continues to describe that we are most fascinated by the taboo and dark side of our peers because that is the most human side of them. It's our mistakes and secrets and insecurities and imperfections that are our true humanity that lives beneath our polished presentation to the public. That's why we are so curious about it in others. She even pushes this point to the next level in this interview, discussing how our bodily fluids are the most raw and private dimensions of us. It's just something we would never discuss in public, but all collectively know is within us and we deal with it every day. One very big example of this relates to Oliver's infatuation and obsession with Felix, peeking in on him, pleasuring himself in the bathtub, and then proceeding to wash his face with and drink the remaining water. It's as if he's gaining access to Felix in a way no one has ever before, and no one ever should, and that for him is a moment of ecstasy. And when Oliver becomes even further infatuated and obsessed with Felix, he begins executing on a strategy to stay at the house for as long as possible and become as close as possible with each family member. He flatters Elspeth, mentioning how outstandingly beautiful of a mother she is. He seduces Venetia, who he senses is attracted to him because of how real she says he is. Since he isn't as wealthy as the Catton family, there is a piece of his humanity that hasn't been tainted by overwhelming wealth, possessions, and popularity. And Venetia is enticed and compelled by that. And that twisted scene where they do what they did, even though she's on her period, I think actually really has purpose. This shocking sexual act ties back to what Emerald Fennell said about bodily fluids and humanity. He is embracing the most vulnerable, raw, and human aspect of Venetia that not a lot of men would embrace, in a way she has never experienced, and aligns with her obsession with how raw and real she thinks he is. And this makes her even more attracted to him. As we see, she shows up at his window the next night. And even when Farley finds out about this and spreads the word, Oliver is able to turn the rest of the family on Farley. He emphasizes to the parents how Farley is a bad influence on Felix when it comes to recreational drugs. And he even frames Farley for sending out an email trying to sell the belongings of the Catton family. And I'm sure you know this, but this concept of exploring forbidden territory doesn't only exist within Oliver. The Catton family is terribly guilty of it too. A good example of this is when Oliver wakes up and hears Felix's family gossip about his drug-addicted mother and the death of his father. And as soon as he meets them, Elspeth insists he tells her everything about his tragedy and trauma as if she can somehow help him with it all. This specifically relates to a psychological concept that Emerald describes in an interview with Esquire UK, called savior complex. And it's this attitude that one can develop where they feel an unending need to help others, even in the most inappropriate circumstances. A person with this complex will make an attempt to assist and even continue to assist when they're not being helpful and are actually being more detrimental to the situation. It can often develop within people who are feeling a lack of purpose in life or have an abundance of resources that they don't actually know how to put to use. And this concept applies perfectly to the Catton family. They want to know all of Oliver's family drama when they first meet him. They want to throw him a birthday party without actually asking if he truly wants one. And most of all, Felix wants to bring Oliver back to his family to try to help him solve his lifelong family issues without ever meeting his parents. And this, of course, brings me to the scene where we visit Oliver's home and meet Oliver's family. Felix realizes that Oliver was lying the entire time. He actually comes from a nice family with a loving mother and father and siblings. And when Felix is devastated by his realization of Oliver's dishonesty, he dismisses him entirely from his life, claiming the night of the party is his last night at Saltburn. And of course, as the ending reveals, when Oliver realizes he can't earn back Felix's acknowledgement and respect, he poisons his drink at the party. And that moment after the funeral where Oliver penetrates the dirt, I think was his most hopeless and desperate attempt at having what he always wanted with Felix. And at the same time, coming to terms with the fact that he knows he will now never have that. And when the family is clearly in shock after Felix's death, Oliver begins a strategy to pick them off one by one. And I want to explain his motivation for doing this once I get to the very end of this video, but for now, I just want to break down his strategy in picking them off one by one. He hints that Farley's involvement with recreational drugs could have led to Felix's death. He assists Venetia in her path towards suicide by putting razor blades by the bathtub. And when he is paid by Sir James to leave the estate, Sir James soon passes away from a sudden illness, which may have been caused by Oliver somehow, that we don't see on screen. And then Oliver puts himself in the perfect place to be seen by Elspeth and be invited back into the castle. This happens off camera, but he develops a strong relationship with Elspeth, who actually signs away her estate to Oliver in the case of her death. And soon enough, what do you know, we see Elspeth on life support because of something that Oliver has caused off screen completely. And in this moment, just before Oliver kills Elspeth, he mentions he didn't love Felix. He hated him, which indicates that his admiration for Felix stems from, or at least involves, some deep feeling of jealousy. Which actually makes sense, because as said before, Felix represents everything that Oliver wants and doesn't have. Until now. So in the end, we see Oliver celebrating his inheritance by dancing naked throughout the entire house. And to me, this scene, although extremely wicked and shocking and vile, actually symbolizes the initial central theme of the film that we spoke about at the very beginning of this video. Oliver is celebrating because he finally has what he always wanted. Rather than be with Felix, he has now become his own version of Felix. A high status, wealthy, well-known big name, as he always wanted to be. However, ultimately and truly, just like the Catton family, his life is more empty than it's ever been. Everything to celebrate for, but nobody to celebrate with. Alright, that's my analysis. Subscribe for weekly videos and please send me recommendations. And please let me know your thoughts on Saltburn. I'd love to discuss. Thank you so much for watching. See you later.